Okay, we are live.
That's
Welcome,
right.
everyone. I am excited to launch this series that Tammy and I decided to um, come up with. It's called The Brown Woman, White Woman, Two Women, Two Cultures, One Goal. It was just an idea. We started talking about leadership, we started talking about confidence, we started talking about our different childhoods, which we eventually found out that they were quite similar. And we have had various challenges, and yet we are both very successful. And it just struck us that why don't we start talking about real things? Because you might have heard about leadership from many, many places. You might have heard about negotiation and the gender differences and whatnot. And we thought that we will make this series very real, things that people don't want to talk about. People try to fit everything in a framework which looks very nice, and it gives a checklist. If you do this, you will become a great leader. And we all know, right? That's not how leadership works. It's about being authentic, which is another word that gets thrown around just like that. And nobody really talks about what it means to be authentic. So we decided that we are going to be real, we are going to be raw, we are going to talk about challenges, we are going to talk about wins, and we are going to talk about, what it really takes for any woman to become successful and define leadership in her own way. So let us start with introducing ourselves. So, Tammy, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, and then I will talk about myself.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mrinalini. Mrinalini, sorry.
Mrinalini. We'll have to work on that, right? We'll have to work on it.
I
Mrinalini.
I I can't even I can't believe that, and I practice it all the time, and I still can't do it. Terrible, terrible.
We'll
Okay.
get you up to speed on that. No problem.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Tamara Lashchyk, and also not an easy name to say. Most people call me Tammy, so feel free to do so. And I am an executive strategist, coach, and consultant. And prior to doing this, I spent 26 years working in financial services on Wall Street. So have been going through a reinvention process, but while I was working on Wall Street, I had written a book that helps women advance in the corporate world, specifically in male dominated arenas. And I talk about things like today's topic, negotiating, which is one of my favorite topics, mostly because of its connection to money, which is my ultimate favorite topic. But yes, we had another series a few weeks ago. And then when we started to talk about the differences, the cultural differences that we each face, yes, there are some differences, but for the most part, there's a lot of similarities. And when you think about the stereotypes and then you actually have a conversation, with somebody, you realize that we are more alike than we are different. And, our goals, our dreams are very similar, no matter where in the world we all live. And so we thought it would be interesting to have this series. And we're kind of a little sick of watching everybody give these canned answers on how you do this or how you do that. And that's why we decided to go balls to the wall and choose the name Why You Suck at Negotiating. I mean, flat out, you're either good at it or you're probably not. And there are very specific reasons why you're not. And negotiating and sales are two very important skills, no matter what business you're in. So that is both my background and a little bit of the intro as well.
Great. That's awesome, Tammy. And it's so much fun to collaborate with you. A little bit about me. I am a confidence coach for Indian IT professionals. I used to call myself a leadership coach or an executive coach, but I realized that what I help my clients with is way more than just becoming a leader or getting promoted or landing a lucrative job. That's why I decided to changed my niche to being a confidence coach, because when we work on our confidence, the sky is the limit. You can decide whether you want to get in the C suite, whether you want to continue doing what you're doing, whether you want to take a break and hike Mount Everest. I don't know what you do. I don't care what you do with that confidence, or whether you start your own business. And confidence is the foundation for everything that you do. So before becoming a confidence coach, I have a very eclectic background. I used to be a physician. My heart was not into it, and I decided to do something else. Uh, did not have many options to leave healthcare, so I chose something that is related to healthcare. So I went to healthcare business, and I became a process improvement and leadership coach there. And then I continued that path. Eventually, I became a business professor, which was the turning point in my career, which is why I decided to become what I am today. Having taught in the MBA and executive MBA programs, I realized that there's a huge gap. These programs are designed for companies to profit. So they teach you how to be a good employee, how to make sure that you're improving efficiency, how you're making the companies, make more money, make good products. But the biggest gap that I saw was nobody teaches people to negotiate. Nobody teaches people to show up with power. Nobody teaches people to push back in meetings if your idea is struck down. And I thought that that was something I wanted to teach everyone. So that's what I do day in and day out. And negotiation is my favorite topic, because I used to be scared of it, and now I love it. And I have to use the same skills in my business as well, sales. And we are going to talk everything that we know about negotiating and how we can do it differently and powerfully. So, why don't we dive in, Tammy?
Yes.
All
Where
right.
we
So, you want to start?
Yes. So let us begin with um, talking about why you suck at negotiating. let us let us start actually there at the top. And I mean, there's several reasons. It's not really just one. Um, one reason, actually, I'm going to save the bigger reason, but the smaller reason is you haven't practiced negotiations. Okay, that is one reason. So you think that you're going to go into your boss's office once a year and you're going to be able to have a confident conversation when you really haven't practiced negotiations. And I always tell my clients that you have an opportunity every single day to practice negotiating. Every time you exchange money of any kind is an opportunity for a negotiation. Anytime you have any kind of energy exchange with another person, you have an opportunity for negotiations. And don't kid yourself, you're negotiating with your spouse or your boyfriend or significant other every day. Everything's a negotiation. So I would encourage everyone every day to look for opportunities to negotiate. And I'll give one story about how I view everything as a negotiation, and it's one of my favorite stories. So when I just moved into my apartment in Soho in New York City, there was a juice store next door. Um, and so I love green juices. So I went in and I ordered a green juice. Now Soho's a very expensive neighborhood, and it was $12 for a juice that was not that big. And I was a little bit like, "Ooh, that's steep." So I ordered it anyway, and the girl was making it, and I could see that she's putting in the kale and then looking for the spinach, and she's searching and searching, looking in the refrigerator, and she's not finding the spinach. So she says to her boss, she whispers something, and I'm sure he says to her, "Put in more kale, we're out of spinach." So she starts loading it up with more kale. And I said to her, "Excuse me, are you out of spinach?" And she nods her head, looking kind of frightened. And I said, well, you don't get to double down. You shouldn't double down on kale just because you're out of spinach, because now the juice is going to be too bitter. And furthermore, if you don't have all the ingredients, I am not paying $12 for a juice that you don't even have all the ingredients to.
Yeah.
So I'll take that juice, but I'm only paying 6. And she looks at her boss and he's like, okay, they kind of nod. And so she's like, all right. And she hands me the juice. I pay the $6 and I walk out the door. And I was kind of frustrated because again, I assumed that the standard should be that if you're going to charge that much and you're going to be in such a tony little neighborhood, you should really have it should be pretty much perfection. And so I was very disappointed. And then months later, they went out of business. So it wasn't a surprise. But the point was that there is opportunities every day. I even say I'd negotiate my dry cleaning bill if it's necessary. So look for those opportunities to practice.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm giving you the end in the beginning.
Yeah.
So
That's a great story. And you're so right. We have opportunities every single day. And I want to list some, especially in the workplace. Actually, I want to list others as well. But the meetings that you have to attend. Just because somebody asks you to attend the meeting is not a good enough reason for you to continue attending a meeting, wasting 1 hour of your time in a meeting where you're just sitting and listening. So you can always negotiate and ask, what role am I playing here? Can I come only for 10 minutes where I am presenting? Do I need to attend this every single week? A project gets dumped on you, you can push back and say, my plate is full. I cannot really take on another project. And if you do want me to take on another project, what can you take off of my plate? Because if we don't have these conversations, we will be swamped. We will be doing things that don't add any value to our career. At home, who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to do the folding of clothes if you don't have help at home? You don't have to do everything. You can always negotiate. And the rule of negotiation is that do only those things that only you can do. Everything else, see if you can delegate, see if you can scratch them off your list, because you get life only once. And we are gonna be like real about it, right? We get life only once, and we know that, right? But we don't apply that in the present moment. In the present moment, if a project gets dumped on you, you just start working on it because you're afraid to say no, you're afraid to negotiate. But guess what? The fact still is there that this is the only life that we are going to get. Choose how you spend it wisely, because ultimately it's related to the bigger picture. We are talking about negotiation, but ultimately it helps you figure out how you want to live your life.
yes, yes. So so I would say start with negotiating where the risk is relatively low.
Yeah.
So did it matter if I negotiated and won the negotiating in the juice? No. Maybe my ego would have been a little hurt because I would have walked out pissed off. But what does that really matter? Start small where the risks are low, because as the stakes get higher, the negotiations get more challenging.
Yeah.
Then move on and start negotiating things in your day to day, like the meetings that you shouldn't be attending that are a waste of time. Just and the projects you're asked to do and to work on. And you will start to build that confidence in order you know, to build that negotiating muscle, because the ultimate reason why you're not good at negotiations is fear. And we're gonna get to that. We're gonna unpack that a little bit more. Um, yeah.
Yeah, actually, why don't we dive in right now?
Okay.
So I have some thoughts around that. and Tammy, you can share yours as well. So, in the Indian context, I can tell you that, especially for women, no was not an answer acceptable, right? If you were asked to do something, there was no scope for negotiation. If you said no, you were considered as a bad girl, you were considered as rude. So nobody really taught us how to negotiate. It was all like, do as I do. I am the authority, I am your parent, you do as I tell you. And there's also that cultural thing, right? In India, we talk about, respect your elders, and the and there's nothing wrong with that. Only the problem is that the elders could be really really nasty to you, and you still have to respect them. So that fear of authority was, it was put in our minds from when we were very young. And then, school teachers, I remember when we used to, even right from kindergarten, if the teacher entered the classroom, the kids had to stand up and say good morning ma'am or good morning sir. And we were just programmed to um, to put people of authority on the pedestal. And because of that, people with titles, people with a certain status, they were always up here. So to negotiate with them always seemed like, there was a big difference in status. So it always felt scary to say no, or to say that, oh, instead of this, could I do that? So the fear of authority, the cultural conditioning, not having any training on how to negotiate, or even telling you that, oh, it's okay to negotiate, that was not on the table at all. So as we grew up, we were afraid of authority, we were afraid to say no. And because we did not have the training in negotiation, we didn't even know that it's possible to negotiate.
Yeah.
So, all these cultural things matter a lot when it comes to negotiation. So, it's not just here's the script, go say this to your boss, and you will get what you want, because you have that fear, that energy that you bring to the table.
Yes. And I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. And while in India, it's probably the general fear of authority, here in the US, particularly with women, I would say it's even more specific to your relationships with your father. And it's actually amazing when you see women walk into a room with a manager who's male, who may be a few years older, they really shrivel down into this sort of little girl. And it's like they're going in and they're asking their daddy for money. And I even remember when I was a young vice president and I was meeting with very senior leaders that were a few levels above, my boss, my bosses. And I remember feeling like I was like that little girl, and these were all men of my father's age. And I remember as I started to get more senior, but being super conscious of that feeling. Like many women aren't even they're not even conscious that they're going into a meeting and that's what they're really falling into. I was very conscious of it. So I worked in order to elevate myself and act as though they were my peers. And but it took work over
Mhm.
several years, and it developed with credibility, it developed, with respect from them, and it developed with a bit of practice to coming in and bringing this energy that had this gravitas, that this maturity, and literally had to do some what they call power poses, literally had to do some breathing exercises before I went into those meetings to make sure that I am coming in with a very big energy and one that was equivalent to their level. So it's not just sort of all authority. I would even focus in on the relationship that you had with your father.
Mhm. Yeah. Or in some cases, mother, because in some cases, the mothers are very dominating. And, some kids are afraid of their moms more than their dads. So, understanding those dynamics is very important because I think, with all the marketing that goes on, all the white papers that get published, this part nobody talks about. Everybody says that, oh, do this, so they will basically say, oh, you're not showcasing your work. I mean, it's very easy to say. How are you going to showcase anything if you're feeling small? You are going to minimize what you do, you're going to minimize your accomplishments. So, unless and until that inner work is done, you really cannot occupy the space that you need and show up and make that ask that your heart truly desires.
Yes. Yes. And just to add one comment on the showcasing of the work, that's sort of that cliche tip that everyone gives. Oh, make sure you're your own cheerleader and you're showcasing and stuff. And then when you start doing it, then everyone's like, "Oh, she's so boastful," or whatever. It's because there's a mismatch in the energy. The fact that you go in and you're like, "I did this and I did this and I did this is not the energy of a confident person who knows that they are fully capable and are very good at their job. People who are people who know they're good, they don't need to go in and brag. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't showcase your accomplishments because everyone in the corporate world is focused on themselves and what they can get. So they're likely not thinking about you, but you don't have to go in there with like this, you've got a laundry list of all your accomplishments and the energy that you're bringing in is small. It's like that cartoon where you have that big cartoon character and then you have the little one who's like, let me at him, let me at him. It's like that. You've got this little energy and you're trying to list all these things and people are feeling that disconnect. But if you really want to exude your power, it's an inside job. You've got to come in with this inner confidence that will radiate out. And then you're like, yeah, I did that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And negotiation is not, you know, uh, negotiation doesn't start when you enter the room. It should have started how you have been showing up, throughout the year, how many meetings you have had with your bosses, with your leaders. And when you're at the negotiation table, it should not be a surprise to the boss or you what you share with each other. A lot of my a lot of my clients initially, they have felt like they went into the negotiation room and they just felt that, oh, I've been working so hard throughout the year, and for some reason my boss has forgotten what all I have done, or my boss does not see all the things that I have done. It's not on the boss, right? Because the boss is invested in his or her own success, and they are figuring out how they can, um, they can position themselves for the raises, for the promotions that they want. So it is important for you to have those conversations throughout the year so that the boss cannot tell you that, oh, I did not know you worked on this, or minimize the efforts that you have put in.
Yes. And I think that that is a very, very good point. Your negotiation should be strategic, not just waiting for that year end conversation. You should definitely be having conversations frequently with your boss and, bringing him along or her along for the journey of what you're doing and what you're working on so that when it comes time for that year end discussion, they're not surprised. They know what you've been working on because you've been, having discussions and dialogues, and, you've formed a relationship with your boss. And so then it just becomes a matter of a conversation and less of this stressful, anxious, life dependent discussion.
Right. Right.
Do you want to dig deeper into the fear? Because we've only talked about a little bit, but the fear is, let's dig deeper
Yeah,
into the
let's
fear.
do that. And, I think this is also a good point to tell the audience that we are actually going to have a master class on how to do a performance evaluation conversation so that you can have the results that are in your favor. So we are going to do a master class on Thursday,
Next
December
Thursday.
19th at 7 o'clock Eastern time, which is convenient for a lot of busy professionals. And Tammy and I are going to dive into what exactly needs to go in your annual assessment document, how to understand the dynamics between the boss and the employee. We are going to talk about how to bring that powerful energy to the room versus feeling like, oh, my fate depends on what my boss is going to tell me. So we have something amazing planned for this masterclass, and I will post the link in the comments, and you can sign up for it. But yeah, let's go dive deeper into the fear, Tammy.
Yes. So the real reason that anyone really sucks at negotiations is the same reason that most people have no idea about their financial situation. It is a fear of money. And that is, I mean, it really comes down to that. Um, and why do you have a fear of money? Well, at the risk of sounding like a psychologist, you've got to go back to childhood and really understand how money was treated in your household, in your family, and what kind of a relationship did you develop about money in your formative years. And a lot of us, we all have money baggage, all of us. And until you work through that money baggage, you will always feel uncomfortable talking about money. And maybe not about like the money you make right now, but there will be an unhealed wound that will touch upon a nerve of shame or pain or something, and you'll be triggered. And I see it time and time again for business owners and entrepreneurs. It's usually when you have somebody say, okay, let's look at your numbers. And people start getting defensive and squirmy. And, when you start, even talking about your salary, this is a very personal and emotional, and it's an emotional thing. And if you feel like you're underpaid, you have pain around that because you're being, it's demoralizing working really hard and not getting paid your worth. So you have this wound around that, that if someone starts asking you questions, you will be triggered and it will hurt. Um, so there is a lot to that we all need to work on to really uncover those money issues and money baggage and money wounds that we have. And I think that, to me, the rule of thumb is if you have a hot button around an issue or a topic, if something triggers you, that's exactly where you need to focus and do the work. You need to go deep into that pain and clear it out because it's going to hold you back.
Yeah, great point. And again, nobody talks about it, right? People tend to separate professional lives and personal life, right? They will tell you that, oh, if you're negotiating for salary, that's work related, right? Nothing personal applies to that. But everything is personal. It is so interesting, the cliched quote, right? Never ask a woman her age and never ask a man his salary, right? we have basically separated that money is a man's job, and money is not a woman's job, right? And these are the stereotypes that we have grown up with, and we've never given it so much importance until we find ourselves struggling with money, struggling with negotiation, struggling with getting raises and bonuses. So that's such a great point, Tammy, that you shared. It's all about your relationship with money. And I
Yeah.
can share some of the experiences I had growing up. My mom would constantly, remind us money does not grow on trees. And we were already feeling, that there's a scarcity of money. So we have to be very careful around money. I can lose money really quickly. How I spend my money is very important. So I felt like I cannot spend money on me. I'll always have to save it for the rainy day. And it was a very strange relationship. It was a relationship of fear with money, that
Yeah.
I can lose money very easily, and it takes a lot of work to make money.
And I would even add, how do you feel spending money on yourself today? There's probably a lot of guilt that you had to work through if
Yes.
that is how you were brought up.
Yeah, I did. And the interesting thing is, as I coach women, I men too, actually. I know we made this event for women, but it is applicable for both men and women. What I'm going to share right now is that when you go in the room, right, and you are afraid of the fear that it takes a lot of work, it's hard to make money. That idea that if you could just have the right kind of conversation with your boss and actually get that raise and bonus, that is scary for them, because in our mind it has always been, no, it can't be that easy, right? And plus, how can I ask my boss for that amount? And if the boss says no for some reason, they actually, like I had a few women actually tell me that I feel so sorry for the boss. The boss really wants to help me, but he can't because it's a budget issue, or the skip level said no, or I lack some skills. And we leave the room feeling like, yes, my boss is right. Because again, two things in the picture. One is authority. Whatever authoritative people tell you is correct, right? You cannot question that. So you leave the room feeling depressed, deflated, unsure of what you need to do to get that raise. And then the second thing is that deep, dark, I want to call it dark, limiting belief that it takes a lot of work to make money. So you are so afraid to have that conversation. So you make it harder for you, because that belief is that it takes hard work to make money.
Yeah. And when you have these money wounds, um, think about the energy that you're bringing in with you. You have all these money scenarios that happen as a childhood. They're all in your subconscious. You're not even conscious of them. You don't even know that that's how you feel. And you're bringing all of this baggage into your conversation, which is not an easy conversation anyway. So you're nervous, you've got to meet with the boss, you've got to ask for something we're not usually good at, but now you're bringing in all the baggage from your whole life with money, the guilt, that, oh, maybe I don't deserve it, or money doesn't grow, it can't be that easy, and oh, I feel bad for the boss, and all of these things that have been uncleared, unreconciled, and this is the energy you're coming in with. And then, when they give you whatever excuse, you take it at face value, which that excuse is always a lie.
Yeah.
It's they will say whatever they need to say in order to get themselves out of that meeting unscathed. So they will say anything.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, they said they can't, but I asked. You feel good about asking, but that's sort of the end of it. And you go out with your tail between your legs. You justify it till Sunday, and that's how the days end. And you continue to work your ass off, hoping that next year will be better.
Yeah.
And
And
this
the
is
real
sorry, this is the hamster wheel we're all on.
Yeah, yeah. And the reality is negotiation starts at the first no, right? That's the start of negotiation. Otherwise, you haven't even started a negotiation. You've just put your ask on the table and negotiation hasn't started. So getting comfortable with that no, and then having those strategies to push back is very important. And understanding, is the boss is being genuine, or is he just giving you BS? So that's the reason it's important to know. And we will talk about it. Is budget really an issue? Do you really lack leadership skills? How do you know your boss is just bluffing? And it's important to figure that out, because once you know that, then you can leave the room feeling that you have a path in mind. And the path could be, yes, I'm getting promoted, I'm getting that bonus or raise, or realizing that, my boss is not invested. So even if I bend backwards to please him or her, I am not going to get that raise. And again, this is like, everything is so interconnected. And I want to say it here: boss is just one person in your organization, and you should never leave the fate of your career in one person's hand. Which is why, we will talk about it. You need to open the side doors and connect with senior leaders, but that's a topic for another time. But know that just because one person said no, your career is not sealed. You can always find different ways to grow in the same company. Test everything. Do not just run away from jobs. Oh, I don't see any future here just because one person said no.
Yes, yes. Um, One thing I always get a question on how do you improve your relationship with money? And so I just wanted to offer up one tip that everyone could do and should do, really, because it's just a matter of good practice, is everyone should create their own personal balance sheet. And that means really going through all the assets that you have, all your liabilities, your bills, and really putting them down into like a balance sheet and really understanding your numbers. I mean, we all get bills and we're like, oh, I don't even want to look at that bill. A lot of people are so scared of their bills that they won't even open their bills. But you've got to face the music. You've got to look at the numbers, the hard numbers, and, you know, look, you may have a high paying job, but you may be spending more than you're making. That's quite common. A lot of people never really learned how to properly manage their money and gotten, this happened with me, full disclosure. I was kind of getting screwed by a boss who was just really taking taking a lot out of me. So I had a couple bad comp years and felt like I was grossly underpaid. And then I went to a new company, and the woman who was hiring me was also a mentor. And so she doubled my base salary, gave me a sign on bonus and a guaranteed year end bonus. And we were already in end of November. So I essentially got a huge a huge year end bonus for just, 2 months of work. I did not know how to responsibly manage that kind of money. And as a result, I had a $10,000 a month American Express bill every month, which was a lot. And I got myself into a lot of debt. I went crazy and just spent and spent and spent. And when the financial crisis hit, I was kind of maxed out. And I remember thinking to myself, like one false move and I could be really wiped out. And it was a wake up call for me that I need to become financially responsible and prudent. And I did this exercise. And I remember thinking, I said to myself, I just need to make more money. The reality was that I was making plenty of money. I needed to get a handle on the money, and I felt that God was not going to reward me with a higher paying job until I showed responsibility. And so I paid off all my credit cards and just became like super vigilant and prudent. And then I did get a higher paying job, but this time was better prepared for it. And there's a personal development guru who's one of the best of all time, Jim Rohn, and he talks about if you inherit $1 million, you'd best become a millionaire. And there's so much truth to that statement because if you get a windfall of cash without taking the progressive steps that you need in order to manage incremental growth of money, you're bound to lose it. It's why lottery ticket, winners go broke within a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say this is one cultural difference that I see, is that a lot of Indian women don't look at their expenses. It's all, the husband or father or brother who are responsible for that. So they don't look at, how much money is coming, where is it being spent, where is it invested. All they do are they are just on that hamster wheel of, I have to go to work every day, do my part, and then I bring a paycheck home. And the other thing that I noticed was it's the opposite. So and again, I'm not generalizing. I don't want to generalize it. There are always exceptions, but a lot of women, they don't spend money on themselves. They don't spend money at all. Or if they do spend, they, it could be the mortgage, it could be, like very the basic necessities is what they spend money on. And they feel guilty about spending money on getting a maid, right? Especially in the US, in the Western world, getting help is very expensive, right? So they don't spend money on that. And what ends up happening is that they are working very hard at work, because they're afraid that, you know afraid of saying no. They take on more than their usual share of responsibilities. They'll take on more projects. Then they come back home and they have an unfair share of responsibilities at home as well. Now I also want to create, also want to clear something here, because whenever I say this, men feel that, hey, but we are also responsible, right? Who is taking care of, if the car breaks down, if something breaks down in the house, we are the ones who are fixing and everything. But when I talk about chores that women handle, it's every single day. Car does not break down every single day. Things do not break every single day. So there are still, I mean, amazing Indian men who, roll their sleeves and work as a partner with women. But still a lot of women are still doing majority of the chores, just because, they are afraid to spend money on getting the help that they need. And that's the relationship of money, because they feel like, oh, it's better for me to do things than to waste money on getting a maid. But if you're executives, if you're making 500K, $1 million, and if you calculated how much you make per hour, it's way cheaper to get a maid to help you, because you can use that time to strategize your next move in your career. You can strategize, you can plan the next vacation, or you can plan other things in your life. But if you think about, oh, it's just 2 hours, I can do it, you are spending way more money than paying a maid to do the work.
Yes, yes. Um,
So where do we go from here, Tammy?
well, I thought that one of the things we could talk about is the energy, some of the energetic attributes and what they look like. when you go into a negotiation and maybe how to prepare for a negotiation.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, in terms of preparation for a negotiation, I think that, you know, the jobs, you can do research on the job, on your job, and get a sense of how much your job is worth. There's a number of websites that you could use to look them up, but you should have a general idea of what the job pays before you go into a negotiation because they're not going to pay you more than the job is worth. So that's the rule of thumb. And you could get a pretty good sense of that before you go in. Um, it also would be good to, and it's not often easy to do, but to find out generally what your peers are, although you never really want to bring that up in a conversation. It's irrelevant what anybody else in your department makes because this is a conversation about you. Another thing not to say in a negotiation is don't give them the sob story about how you're broke and can't afford. A lot of people think that that may be a good strategy and say, that is not that's not the company's problem. It's not your boss's problem. It's really not a professional conversation. You really want to come in and speak to the value that you're bringing to the company as the reason that you should get paid what you're getting paid.
Absolutely.
Um,
One
Go
thing
ahead.
that I want to share is, even the fact that, oh, I worked so hard and I deserve this, is also not going to work, because again, this is something that you should have been sharing with your boss all along. It shouldn't be, at the annual evaluation you're putting in all the energy to create that performance evaluation document, and then when you go in, you are shocked that, oh, my boss gave me only 3 when I gave myself 4.5 or 5. And then you are spending time in giving explanation. That is a waste of time during the negotiation um, conversation. This should have happened throughout the year. And then when you're negotiating, you're basically understanding your boss's worldview. So, to give you an example, let's say the boss says, oh, uh, there's no budget, right? So, the key here is, maybe there is the budget or maybe there is not the budget. But what you want to know is your boss on board with getting you that raise? Because otherwise, if you do not know that, then it's just a back and forth of words. So when the boss says there's no budget, you can basically say, okay, budget aside, I want to know, where do you see me? Do you see that I deserve the raise for all the work that I have given? I have met all the metrics. So I'm really trying to understand where you stand with it. And the thing is that when you ask these questions, your boss is taken aback because they are ready to give you this excuse. All they are caring about is, this is an uncomfortable conversation for me, and I want to, like Tammy said, I want to leave this conversation unscathed. So they are coming up with their usual reasons. So you want to be smarter and you want to push back and ask, okay, budget aside, do you think I deserve this raise? Because if they say yes, then you can have more conversations. Okay, so let's talk about then, how can we make this happen? Or you can get a commitment for what will happen in the next quarter. Or you can have them have a commitment that, yes, I will speak with the skip level, or you can go and speak with the skip level, because now you can say that, oh, my boss also feels that I deserve it, but his or her hands are tied. So it's a process. Negotiation is not just one conversation. It's the beginning of multiple conversations, and it gives you multiple strategies about how you can go about getting that raise that you deserve.
Yeah. And I would just underscore when you talk about the stuff that you've done all year, make it value based and not task oriented. Don't just rattle off, I did this, 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 and this, and this. but really speak to the value that you bring. Like, what did you doing those tasks actually do, for the department's metrics, for the companies? Like, what actual value did it bring? Because ultimately, that is what we're getting paid on. We're getting paid on the value that we bring to the marketplace. Whether you're working in a corporate environment or whether you're an entrepreneur, the market is very efficient and it's going to pay you your worth. So if you're not getting paid, you should also look and see and ask yourself honestly, am I bringing value? And how can I increase the value that I'm bringing? Now, we're moving into, you know, a hyper technological age where AI is going to be able to replace a lot of jobs. So think about, what jobs are AI not going to be able to replace? There's still a lot of human skills that are needed, things like judgment, you know, decision making. I mean, AI can't really do those things. Imagination, creativity, innovation, connection, relationship, sales is one of the most important skills out there, and again, you're always selling yourself. Build relationships. Don't make every conversation just about, this negotiation. Start by building relationships. You get a lot further in the corporate world when everyone actually likes you and roots for you and wants you to win. Build those collaborations and build coalitions that will then, help you rise.
It's very important. I also want to emphasize, when you talk about your work, it should be value based. You know what value you're bringing to the table, to the company, to the boss. When you talk about, oh, I stayed up until 2 o'clock and I completed that project or sent that email, many times we assume that the boss will read what time that email was sent and give you a pat on your back that, oh, thank you for working so hard for for this project. It doesn't work that way. If you are putting in 15 to 16 hours every single day, it is on you. It's your mistake. There's something wrong. You are saying too many yeses instead of no's, and that's why you are swamped with work. That is not going to give you a raise. In fact, that will create doubt in your boss's mind. Why does it take this person this long to get this task done? And annual evaluation or negotiation conversation is not the time to give an explanation about that. So, it is you can have a very fulfilling career if you are able to negotiate every single day, because that one conversation, the annual evaluation that you're going to have, it is not the, what should I say, that's not the conversation that is going to give you the raise, but it's multiple such conversations throughout the years is what is going to give you the results that you're looking for.
Yeah. Um, yes. And when you're going into, so going back to, looping back to the money baggage and all the emotions about money, when you've cleared all those things out, or at least are conscious of the wounds you have, the relationships you have with money, then this whole negotiation just becomes a conversation. Okay? It is completely dispassionate of any emotion, and it just is. It just becomes a conversation, and then the pressure is really lifted because it just it just it just is, and you have to let go of that attachment. Again, getting paid and your salary is something very personal, but if it's really triggering you and causing a, very uh a, a pretty big emotional response, that means that there's energy there. That means that there's wounds there that need addressing, because it shouldn't be you shouldn't leave there feeling like you want to cry, or like you shouldn't be emotionally charged when you leave that conversation. Just go in, have the conversation. It's just a conversation about a topic like any other. And I always recommend, whether you're asking for a raise or not, you should always have an expectation conversation with your boss. I always felt it was very important that every year, like while they're writing, like you're doing your self assessments and as the bonus money is getting allocated to departments, it's really important to have that conversation with your boss. This way, when that bonus gets paid and the raises are given out, there's no surprises. Like you go in, you say, hey, while we're doing this, personal assessment, or, again, this is even before you have your review. You want to just be like, okay, this is what I got last year. This is what I'm expecting for this year. Tell me you know, if this is in line with what you're thinking, because I don't want that day to come and then I don't want to be disappointed. I'd like to know what's coming and what's in your head. And again, when you cleared out money baggage, it just becomes a very, like, hey, what's for lunch conversation. Like it just sort of is,
Yeah,
with no emotional like charge.
exactly. Negotiation skills can be built just like building muscles. You do it consistently on a daily basis, and then it does not feel like you are lifting a heavy weight. So, Tammy, let's talk about our upcoming masterclass. I know this is such a juicy topic, and we will keep coming back and touch on this and many other interesting topics. But let's talk about the masterclass.
Yes. Yes, so we are going to talk about the art of performance review power plays. We'll talk from everything from writing your self assessment to having the conversations with your boss. We'll talk about, you know, well, first of all, everyone should really take this seriously. I always used to say to people, this is the most important document you'll do all year. So it's really important to get it right. And there's lots of, you know, techniques that we can share that will help you really stand out in this review process. But it's also not a miracle worker. If you haven't done fuck all year, it's not gonna save you. It's not gonna save you. Um, but it will definitely help you stand out. Um, it will definitely help you stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the assessment form is just one thing, but there's so much that goes into it, right? Understanding the dynamics, how are you showing up, what kind of energy you're bringing in the room. And then if you do get some really good feedback, are you leaving feeling like you are not enough, like the whole world is shattering right in front of you? Or how do you take that feedback and turn into action, so that you feel much prepared, much clear on what's coming? We will talk about how men negotiate, right? What exactly they do, what strategies they apply to get ahead in their career, and they do well. And their relationship with money is different for a lot of men. Again, there's we can't generalize, uh, but lot of men are comfortable with money because right from the beginning they are kind of considered the provider, right? So it just is very natural for them to talk about how much increase I want for myself, and my expenses have increased, and I need to get this new car or whatever it is. They're very comfortable talking about money. And we need to get there as well, because everything is new for us, as women, to become leaders, to thrive in the corporations. It's everything is new compared to men who have been leading for centuries, right? So we are learning a new way, and we are navigating and trying to be our best version. And the sooner we improve our relationship with money, the easier it will become for us to negotiate whatever we desire in life, not just money. All
Yeah.
right, so we are at the end of the hour. Tammy, it was fun chatting about it. Talking about some real stuff. I hope everyone who are watching live or who will watch this replay, you will have some insights. Make sure to post comments, ask any questions. Tammy and I will personally respond to those comments, and the website is here to register for the masterclass. It's www.unshackledcareerwoman.com/performance review registration. It's going to be an exciting 2 hours that we will uh, dive deep into this topic of performance evaluation, and we will change the way you think about these meetings.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and we will see you next time.